Do you believe that a simple act of kindness can change not just one life, but the fate of many? This question might seem exaggerated at first glance, but if you stop and think about it, you'll realize that seemingly small, almost invisible moments have transformed entire trajectories. A smile offered at just the right moment, a hand extended when no one else dared to help, or even an anonymous gesture of generosity that went unrecognized. These acts, which many consider simple, carry enormous and often underestimated power. Have you ever experienced this? A moment when someone did something unexpected for you, and even if it seemed small, brought relief, hope, or courage to carry on. The truth is that kindness has a silent power capable of breaking down barriers, healing invisible wounds, and shining a light in places where there was only darkness. The most fascinating thing is that most of the time, those who perform these gestures have no idea of the impact they're having. A word of encouragement can be what saves someone from despair. A glass of water offered can be remembered for a lifetime. It seems so simple, but it's precisely in this detail that the extraordinary lies. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover now may surprise you and perhaps even change the way you view human relationships. Inspiring stories of acts of kindness are everywhere, and the curious thing is that they don't have to happen in grand settings or be spotlighted. Many of them originate in ordinary places, on a crowded bus, at the supermarket checkout, on a busy street. A stranger who holds the door, someone who gives up their seat, a neighbor who shares their meal. But behind these simple gestures lies a powerful truth. Kindness is contagious. It awakens something within us, moves us, and makes us want to continue the chain. And that's precisely why human stories involving compassion resonate so deeply. They remind us that there is still hope, even in difficult times. When we talk about acts of kindness, we're not just talking about great heroic deeds, but also the small details that reveal humanity. And perhaps this is what connects us most. Realizing that despite our differences, we all have the capacity to choose good. How many times have you been surprised by a gesture like this? How many times has a stranger shown you, even without words, that you were not alone? It's in these moments that we understand that the world isn't just made up of individual achievements, but also of encounters that change everything. The most interesting thing is that many of these stories begin amidst chaos, when no one expects a solution. It's when everyone is looking at the problem, but someone decides to act. That kindness shows its power. Have you ever imagined being faced with a situation where one decision you made could define someone else's future? This is the kind of reflection that captivates us, because we know it could be us, whether as the one in need or the one who can offer it. And that's precisely what we'll explore together here, how seemingly simple gestures become turning points for entire lives. What happens when an unexpected act creates a domino effect, reaching far more people than we could ever imagine? How can an act of kindness become the seed of lasting transformation? These are the questions that guide us on this journey. So prepare to immerse yourself in a narrative that will not only warm your heart, but also open your eyes to the invisible power that exists in every choice. Because believe me, when kindness enters the picture, nothing remains the same. And this is exactly where our story begins. And as we delve into this reflection on the transformative power of acts of kindness, perhaps you've already remembered a time when a simple gesture changed your day or even your path. It might have been someone who offered you help when you weren't expecting it, or perhaps you yourself did something for someone without realizing the impact. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what touched you most so far. Your story might inspire others who come across this video. And do you know why this is so important? because each comment is like another lit flame, keeping this conversation alive and helping this message reach many more people who need to hear it today. When you comment, like, and subscribe, it's not just a number that appears on the channel, it's a clear sign that this type of content makes a difference. It's your gesture of support that allows more inspiring stories to come to light, touching hearts, lifting people up, and building a community around hope and empathy. So, if you believe we need to spread more messages of kindness around the world, click the like button now and subscribe to continue following stories like this. Because every time you participate, this space grows, strengthens, and paves the way for more and more people to be reminded that good still exists. And this is just the beginning, because the story we'll continue to explore now will show in even more depth how a single gesture can trigger a transformation no one expected. Today I'm going to share a true story that proves how small gestures can create gigantic transformations. And when I talk about transformation, I'm not just referring to external changes, but also those that happen within us, silently, almost without realizing it. Sometimes, all it takes is a single detail, an unexpected action, to completely reshape someone's mindset. Have you ever stopped to think that simple decisions made in seconds can change the entire trajectory of a life? It's as if there's a hidden truth behind the scenes of our daily lives. What seems small, almost insignificant, can turn out to be the turning point in an entire journey. Imagine, for example, an exhausted man returning from work after a hard day. He sees someone on the street carrying heavy bags and decides to help. To the outsider, it might be just an ordinary gesture. But what if that person was right on the verge of giving up on life? What if that simple contact was a reminder that there is still goodness in the world? It is in this silent impact that greatness manifests itself. The gesture itself may fade from memory, but the effect it generates echoes for years or even forever. The story I want to share shows how an action taken without expectation of return can open unimaginable doors. It's living proof that often the greatest treasures aren't hidden in great achievements or fortunes, but in the revelations that arise when someone chooses to act with compassion. And the most interesting thing is understanding how these simple choices don't happen by chance. They're connected to a series of previous decisions, to a path forged with resilience, faith, and even pain. This reminds us that behind every act of kindness lies a line of experiences, challenges, and learning that shaped that person up to that point. This reflection is powerful because it puts us in front of a mirror. How many times have we ourselves done something for someone and let it pass us by? How many times have we looked away, pretending not to see it because we thought it wouldn't make a difference? But the difference exists, even if we can't see it immediately. What you'll discover now may surprise you, because this story isn't just about helping someone, but about how a seemingly simple gesture can trigger a chain of events that change entire destinies. And here's a curious detail. Often those who receive help don't immediately realize the value of what happened. Sometimes they even react strangely, coldly, or unexpectedly. But kindness doesn't depend on applause. The true impact happens behind the scenes, in what no one sees. It's like a seed planted in the ground. It doesn't sprout immediately, but time takes care of revealing what was planted. And this silent cycle is what makes these stories so moving, because they carry within them the essence of what it means to be human, to give without expecting, to love without measuring, to believe without guarantees. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the story that's about to unfold clearly shows that kindness not only changes the lives of those who receive it, but also transforms the worldview of those who give it. It opens doors, creates unlikely connections, and, in some mysterious way, restores something that seemed lost to the giver's life. This is the kind of revelation that makes us rethink our own journey, our priorities, and even what we call success. And before we move on, I want to invite you to join me in this conversation. Comment below, "This makes sense to me." I want to know if this message resonated with you, because every word you leave here becomes part of this chain of inspiration we're building together. It was an ordinary afternoon, the kind where nothing seems out of place. The sun was shining, the streets were bustling, people hurried along, going about their daily routines, and at first glance everything seemed like just another day. But it's precisely in these seemingly simple settings that extraordinary stories begin to be written. And that's where the central character of our narrative comes in, someone who could be any one of us. An ordinary face in the crowd, with piling responsibilities, bills to pay, and a routine that leaves no room for great adventures. He's not a caped crusader, he doesn't possess special powers, and he doesn't even consider himself unusual. He lives between commitments, work, worries, and that silent struggle that millions of people face daily. His name may not matter immediately, because what really matters is what he represents, the essence of ordinary people. A worker who wakes up early every day, braves crowded commutes or long hours at work, and still finds the energy to care for family, support friends, or offer a smile even when tired. Who hasn't met someone like this? This figure reflects real life, the behind-the-scenes details that rarely gain prominence. It is in this seemingly banal setting that life prepares to reveal a hidden truth, that the greatest impacts come from unexpected places. This character's home is simple, with furniture bearing stories, marks of time, and memories of difficult days. The walls hold silences, but also echoes of laughter, and each object has a special meaning. In the kitchen, meals are carefully planned, taking advantage of every detail so that nothing goes to waste. In the bedroom, there are photographs that recall losses, but also achievements. And in his gaze lies something profound, the resilience of someone who has faced obstacles that seemed impossible, but never stopped believing there was still a path forward. It is in this gaze that we understand that behind the seemingly ordinary routine lies a journey marked by decisions, scars, and transformations that shaped who he is today. This character isn't distant from us. On the contrary, the deeper we delve into his story, the more we realize that pieces of each of us are reflected in him. Perhaps it's the way he insists on continuing even when weary, or how he finds small joys in details that many would overlook. He symbolizes silent hope, that flame that, however small, never goes out. And that's precisely what makes his journey so powerful. The ability to show that apparent greatness isn't necessary to make an impact. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the power of this narrative lies not only in the setting in which he lives, but in the revelations that emerge when life confronts him with unexpected choices. It's in these moments, when everything seems ordinary, that opportunities arise to show who we truly are. And when a decision is made, even without great resources or recognition, it can trigger consequences far greater than anyone imagined. What you'll follow from now on isn't just the routine of someone trying to survive. It's a story that carries within itself an invitation to reflect. To what extent does our mindset shape the future? How can small gestures alter the journeys of people we don't even know? This plot reveals the impact of choices made behind the scenes, far from the spotlight, but which carry within them the seed of transformation. And perhaps, as you hear this story, you'll see yourself in some details. In the persistence to move forward, in the pain of loss, or even in the hidden courage that emerges when someone needs your help. Because deep down, we're all connected by these invisible threads that connect our experiences. some more fragile, others stronger, but all carrying the same possibility that every gesture matters. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." I want to feel that you're walking with me in this reflection, because this connection is what gives meaning to each word. I'm sharing here. He lived like so many others, balancing responsibilities, bills, and the silent weight of a routine that seemed to never let up. At first glance, he might have been just another ordinary worker, someone struggling to survive. But within him lay a constant pressure, almost invisible to others. His salary barely covered his basic expenses, and every unexpected event was like a storm that threatened to collapse everything he had worked so hard to build. The refrigerator was never full, the rent was frequently late, and yet he tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy so as not to worry those who depended on him. This was his reality, marked by sleepless nights and long, exhausting days. The problem wasn't just financial. Poverty brings with it a series of layers that go beyond a lack of money. It's the feeling of powerlessness in the face of situations, the weight of injustice when you realize some have everything effortlessly while others, despite their dedication, barely manage to breathe. He knew firsthand the loneliness of struggling in silence, with no one to share his deepest anguish with. Friends drifted away, family could no longer offer support, and life seemed to test his resilience at every turn. There were times when he wondered if it all made sense, if it was truly worth persevering on a journey that always seemed blocked by invisible walls. His health was also beginning to show signs of deterioration. His tired body complained of overtime, double shifts, and rushed, poorly prepared meals. His mind, overwhelmed, oscillated between the need to keep going and the desire to simply give up. It was like living on a razor's edge, knowing that any slip-up could mean an abyss of no return. This was the internal conflict that plagued him daily, the struggle between the desire to offer a better life to those he loved and the harsh reality of not being able to move on from the same place. There was also the pain of feeling invisible. How many times had he reached out for help and been ignored? How many times had his efforts gone unnoticed, as if they were worthless? This is the kind of wound that doesn't bleed on the outside, but corrodes on the inside. Social injustice surrounded him on all sides, making it clear that no matter how hard he worked, he would always be a few steps behind. And yet, within him, there was an insistent flame, a thread of hope that, though fragile, never faded. This character carried not only an external struggle against a lack of resources, but also an internal battle against the thoughts that tried to convince him nothing would change. The transformation he sought seemed distant, almost unattainable, and yet it was precisely this silent search that kept him alive, that made him take another step, even when his body screamed for rest. He didn't know it yet, but every decision, every choice he made amidst the chaos was shaping something greater than he could imagine. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this conflict goes beyond a person struggling with poverty or visible hardship. It shows us the hidden truth about how small decisions made in the dark can yield unexpected revelations. Behind the scenes of life, where no one sees, are born the moments that truly define a journey, and it is precisely when all seems lost that the impact of a simple gesture from outside or within can become the turning point. Comment below. That makes sense to me. I want to know if this reflection also resonates with you, because history still has much to reveal. It was on one of those days when life seemed heavier than usual that everything happened. The clock was already ticking far higher than it should have been when he left work, his pockets practically empty and his mind full of calculations that didn't add up. The rent was overdue, the electricity bill about to be cut off, and the refrigerator that barely held enough food for the next day were like ghosts that followed him at every step. He felt like he was trapped in a maze with no way out, where the walls closed in ever tighter. And as if the invisible weight of poverty weren't enough, there was also the silent ache of loneliness, the certainty that no one seemed to notice how far he was from the brink. That night, the rain was falling heavily and the streets reflected the dim streetlights. He walked quickly, trying to protect the papers he carried inside his briefcase. Important documents that could mean a better job opportunity, perhaps a chance for transformation. But all it took was one slip, an almost trivial stumble, for everything to spill onto the wet ground. People passed by him, some even glanced, but no one stopped to help. And it was in that moment that the hidden truth of his life became clear. When he needed it most, he always seemed alone. The cold wind bit his skin, but what really hurt was the feeling of invisibility. The situation became even more critical when his body, already weakened by accumulated fatigue, showed signs of giving up, sudden dizziness, blurred vision, and a racing heart. He leaned against a wall, trying to catch his breath, but reality was cruel. His health had been crying out for attention for weeks, but between working and surviving, there was never enough time to take care of himself. His body was taking a heavy toll on him for the forced choices, the decisions imposed by circumstances. And in that moment, standing in the rain, he felt he could lose everything. The tension mounted because it wasn't just about him. There was someone at home waiting, someone who depended on his daily strength for even the slightest bit of security. This responsibility was like a heavy chain, a constant reminder that giving up was not an option. But how could he continue when his body and mind were already screaming for help? This was the dilemma that turned his journey into a true test of endurance. And it was precisely at this point when it seemed there was no way out that something unexpected began to unfold. The crisis that was tearing him apart also paved the way for a greater revelation. It was as if life had decided to push him to the limit, simply to show that behind the chaos, there was always the possibility of a new path. Sometimes, the moment when all seems lost is precisely the moment when something greater is about to happen. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic because it is in this scenario of pain, vulnerability, and apparent defeat that acts of kindness capable of becoming stories are born. The impact is not only in the visible scene of the fall, but behind the scenes, in what it evokes in those who watch, in those who choose to reach out and offer help. And it is at this point that we realize that the journey is never made alone, even when we believe we are isolated. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." I want to see who has experienced that moment firsthand when life seemed to close all doors, but still found the strength to carry on. At that moment, when he seemed to have no strength left to continue, something broke the silence of the night. A colorful umbrella opened high above his head, shielding him from the heavy rain streaming down his face. He looked to the side and saw a petite woman with gray hair tied in a simple bun, holding the umbrella firmly yet delicately. Her gaze conveyed compassion, but also courage, as if she saw in him something more than a tired man leaning against a wall. Without asking anything, she simply reached out and helped him gather the papers scattered on the wet ground. The scene was so unexpected that for a moment he didn't know how to react. As he bent down to gather the soaked documents, he felt his breath quicken, his heart still racing, but also a certain relief, as if that gesture had given him a second wind. The curious thing was that many people had passed by, some even slowed to look, but none had stopped. Kindness sometimes emerges precisely from those people you don't expect, from those discreet presences that seem invisible until they decide to act. And that was what made that moment so memorable. The revelation that it doesn't take much to transform someone's night. She offered him a bottle of water she carried in her bag and insisted he drink. The simple act of holding that bottle made him realize something bigger, that even on the hardest days, there can always be someone willing to see another's pain. It was in this detail that the hidden truth of life revealed itself. While many choose to ignore it, all it takes is one decision, a single choice to care, for everything to change. He accepted the help, still embarrassed, and thanked her quietly. But the woman didn't seem interested in formalities. With a light, almost maternal smile, she simply said, "You are not alone. Never forget that." These words resonated with him more strongly than any advice he had ever received. It wasn't just the physical gesture of collecting papers or offering water. It was the emotional impact of feeling seen, acknowledged, reminded that his struggle was worthwhile. This is the power of acts of kindness. They don't have to be grandiose to create transformation. In that simple scene, under the rain, he found a kind of strength that came not from the body, but from the soul. It was as if someone had turned on a light within him, a reminder that no matter how difficult the journey, there are always paths revealed behind the scenes through the courage and compassion of strangers. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because that woman's gesture wasn't just a momentary relief. It opened a space within him for new revelations, awakening the mindset that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. This small encounter was able to redefine his decisions from then on, showing that true impact lies not in the grandeur of actions, but in the sincerity of the heart. It is in these almost invisible details that we find proof that kindness has the power to transform entire destinies. Comment below, "This makes sense to me." I want to see if this scene also resonates with you about how simple gestures can carry enormous weight in our journey. He stood there for a few seconds, unable to find the right words. The scene seemed almost unreal. A stranger in the pouring rain, leaning over to help him collect wet papers, offering him an umbrella and a bottle of water. He wasn't used to this kind of gesture, and perhaps that's why his first reaction was one of distrust. In a world so often dominated by indifference, it was hard to believe someone would care without asking for anything in return. His racing heart, which had previously pounded with fear and exhaustion, now beat with astonishment at being treated so humanely when he least expected it. He watched her for a few moments, almost trying to decipher if there was some hidden interest behind that care. But the lady's expression left no room for doubt. There was no rush, no judgment in her gaze, just the serenity of someone who understands that kindness is, in itself, enough. It was then that a wave of gratitude hit him. It wasn't just about the umbrella, the water, or the saved papers. It was about feeling seen, recognized amidst the invisibility he had carried for so long. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from the mix of emotions bubbling within him. He thanked her quietly, almost shyly, as if he still couldn't believe it was happening. And in that moment, he realized something he'd never realized so clearly before. True kindness doesn't need witnesses. It happens behind the scenes, in the silence of unexpected encounters. The impact of that moment wasn't just in what he received, but in what shattered within him, the feeling that he would always be alone. Still heavy-hearted from the troubles he was carrying, he allowed himself to breathe a little deeper. The woman looked at him calmly, and this brought a kind of comfort, as if she were telling him without words that everything would be okay. His immediate reaction, a mixture of surprise and relief, was proof of how a simple gesture can open the door to inner transformation. He realized that even in the midst of crisis, there could be a way out, and that life always finds ways to show us this when we least expect it. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what seemed like just a brief encounter in the rain contained a hidden truth. His mindset was changing at that very moment. How we react to unexpected help reveals not only how willing we are to accept support, but also how we see ourselves. Some people reject such gestures out of pride or fear, but when we accept them, we open doors to revelations that can alter our entire journey. This reaction was not just an emotional response to the lady's gesture, but the first step in a new way of looking at life and making decisions. That would follow. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. I want to see how many of you here have felt this mix of surprise and gratitude when you received help when you needed it most. The woman who had stopped to help him that rainy night continued on her way, believing she had done something simple, almost automatic. For her, extending her umbrella, offering water, and gathering some scattered papers was nothing extraordinary, but rather a natural reaction to someone in need. Yet, deep down, that scene remained in her mind for the rest of the day. As she walked home, she began to reflect on how we so often rush past people carrying an invisible weight. She wondered, how many stories are hidden behind tired faces? How many internal conflicts lurk behind the scenes of life? The truth is, even without expecting anything in return, an act of kindness always leaves a mark on the person who performs it. She felt something different in that moment, as if she had reclaimed a part of herself that time and routine had buried. It wasn't just the satisfaction of helping, but a profound sense of connection, of remembering that she was still part of a larger web of humanity. Often, the hustle and bustle of everyday life makes us believe we're isolated, each one focused solely on our own problems. But when we choose to act, when we decide to stop our hurried pace and reach out, we become part of something bigger. This realization awakened a renewed mindset in her. The awareness that small gestures carry a disproportionate impact, both on others and on ourselves. That night, when she got home, she left her umbrella at the door, still dripping, and paused for a few seconds before going inside. A question echoed in her mind. How many times had she passed someone in need of help and simply walked on by? Not out of a lack of compassion, but because she believed it wouldn't make a difference. The revelation of that encounter was clear. It always does. Decisions like these not only ease the burden of others, but also generate internal transformation in those who choose to act. It was as if she had discovered a hidden truth that had been there all along, waiting to be realized. She slept that night with an unusual feeling of lightness, as if that seemingly small act had realigned something within her. She realized that helping was not only a benefit to the recipient, but also a form of silent healing for the giver. The impact of this awareness was so strong that in the following days, she began to pay more attention to her surroundings. She noticed details that had previously gone unnoticed: the sad look on someone's face on public transportation, the hesitation of a person in line at the supermarket, the haste masking the pain on the faces on the street. These behind-the-scenes aspects of everyday life, which had previously seemed like mere noise, now became invitations to act differently. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because true transformation doesn't happen just in the moment of the act, but in the long-term effects it has. When someone chooses compassion, it awakens within them a new way of seeing the world. Kindness not only changes the recipient, but also redefines the journey of those who practice it, bringing revelations that shape mindsets, decisions, and even the course of their lives. It's as if, by helping, we're writing a new version of our story, one where the impact extends far beyond that specific moment. Comment below, that makes sense to me. I want to know if you've ever felt this silent transformation when you decided to help someone, even though you thought you were doing little. He continued walking through the now calmer rain, still with the strange feeling of having received help from a complete stranger. He tried to organize the wet papers inside his briefcase, while the woman's words echoed in his mind. "You are not alone." As simple as they seemed, these words resonated with him in a way he couldn't explain. The curious thing is that until then, he believed that this night would be just another one amidst his routine of difficulties, but he was about to discover that there was much more going on behind the scenes of this journey. The next day, with his clothes dry and his briefcase partially recovered, he went to deliver the documents to an important office in the city. The opportunity he sought was small, a modest job, but one that could alleviate the pressure of overdue bills. When he arrived, his body still carried the fatigue of the previous night, but in his heart there was something different, a seed of hope that the woman's action had planted. The impact of her gesture didn't just last, it changed his mindset. He entered that building with a different attitude, with the courage of someone who had been reminded that it was worth keeping trying. It was then that the unexpected twist began to unfold. Upon being called for the interview, he entered a spacious room lit by large windows. Across the table, sitting with an attentive gaze and a welcoming smile, was a man he didn't immediately recognize. But it took only a few seconds for him to notice the surprise etched on the interviewer's face. In a calm voice, he asked, "Were you on that street yesterday in the rain?" His heart raced, and for a moment he thought he would be judged by his worn appearance. But what happened next was the opposite. The man before him was the son of the woman who had helped him the night before. When she arrived home, she couldn't keep what she had experienced to herself. She recounted every detail to her son, describing the state in which she had found him, and, with shining eyes, repeated over and over how transformed she had felt by that simple encounter. Her son, who held a position of influence in the company, not only listened, but also reflected deeply on his mother's story. For him, it was as if this stranger had been an instrument of revelation, reminding him that kindness and courage lie in the details that routine often erases. The interview, which was supposed to focus on professional experiences, took a different turn. What was supposed to be a resume review became a frank conversation about life, hardships, and choices. Instead of technical questions, the man wanted to know more about his story, about the silent struggle he was waging to stay afloat. And it was at that moment that he realized the help he had received had not been just an isolated gesture. It was like a cog in a larger plan, a hidden truth that showed that nothing happens by chance. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this kind of turn of events reveals something that goes beyond chance or luck. It's the invisible impact of human connections, the way each act of kindness can cross borders and reach unimaginable places. The woman's simple gesture, who believed she was simply protecting someone from the rain, triggered a series of revelations that would change destinies. And this is proof that, in life, the decisions we make, no matter how small they seem, have the power to create effects we could never have predicted. Comment below, "That makes sense to me." I want to hear if you've ever experienced or witnessed a moment when something unexpected completely changed the course of your life. Without knowing it, that simple gesture opened doors that would change his future. The man, who had previously found himself stuck in a rut of difficulties, began to notice the first changes in the following days. The unexpected encounter with the woman in the rain not only led to a different interview, but also lit within him a flame that had been nearly extinguished, the courage to believe in himself again. The conversation he had with her son in that room lit by large windows was not just a formality of work. It was a moment of revelation in which he understood that his story, marked by struggles and scars, could be a source of value, not just pain. In the medium term, this began to completely transform his mindset. He, who had previously carried the weight of invisibility on his shoulders, began to walk more confidently. not because all his problems had disappeared, but because he now saw a purpose behind them. The opportunity offered to him at that company wasn't an extraordinary position, but enough to give him stability, confidence, and above all, dignity. The impact of this wasn't limited to finances. It was a profound shift behind the scenes of his journey. He began to believe that life could indeed bring positive twists and turns, as long as he was open to receiving them. Meanwhile, the woman who had stopped that rainy night was also transformed by what happened. She had no idea that her decision to stop and help would become the turning point in another life. But as she saw the reflection of that gesture multiply, she realized that her choice had triggered something greater. That feeling of lightness she felt upon returning home was now confirmed in every news she received about her son. It was as if she had rediscovered a part of herself, remembering that the power of compassion is always greater than we imagine. The two began to meet occasionally, not on planned occasions, but in life situations that seemed guided by fate, and each reunion reinforced a hidden truth. When kindness is in motion, it creates invisible bonds that bring people, stories, and destinies closer together. What was once just a one-off gesture became a chain of events, the consequences of which reached far beyond the immediate. The man found new opportunities, new contacts, and above all, a new way of seeing himself. The woman discovered that it's never too late to be an instrument of transformation. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because these medium-term consequences reveal something essential. Life always responds to our decisions, not always in the ways we expect, but in ways that have a real impact. The act of stopping, offering help, and caring may seem small at the time, but it becomes a turning point in the journey of both the recipient and the provider. And this revelation makes us reflect on how often we fail to act because we believe it won't make a difference. Comment below. That makes sense to me. I want to know if you've ever noticed that a seemingly simple decision generated results that changed the course of your life or the lives of someone around you. Little by little, the story that had begun so discreetly, just a woman protecting a stranger from the rain, began to spread. First, among family and close friends who were impressed by the naturalness of the gesture. Then, through the lips of others who heard the story told with emotion, and soon the news was circulating as an inspiring example. What no one could have imagined was the impact this would have on the community as a whole. Those around him began to notice a visible change. He wasn't just a man who had found a new opportunity, but someone who walked with a different outlook, firmer, more confident. This new glow drew attention because it was accompanied by a story that carried within it a powerful truth. Kindness generates transformation, not only in the individual, but in everyone who crosses its path. Soon, neighbors and co-workers began commenting on how small actions could change someone's day. Some recalled similar incidents. Others confessed that they had stopped taking action in situations where they could have made a difference. This collective reflection sparked a kind of silent wave in which each person began to view their own decisions with greater responsibility. It was as if the entire community had received a reminder that true impact lies not only in grand deeds, but in the daily choices to offer help, even when it seems small. Soon, other examples began to emerge. A neighbor who had previously never cared about the elderly in the building began carrying their shopping bags. A young woman, inspired by the story, decided to start a small clothing drive for vulnerable families. Even children began to replicate these gestures, offering part of their school lunch to classmates who didn't have enough. The ripple effect spread almost invisibly, but with profound consequences. The community, which once seemed to live in a place where everyone seemed to be trapped in their own routine, began to become a more human place. More attentive to the behind-the-scenes details of each person's life. It wasn't about radical changes or heroic acts, but the sum of small revelations, small decisions made daily. And this sum created a new environment where empathy became more prevalent, where compassion was no longer seen as weakness and began to be valued as a force capable of transformation. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what's truly striking is realizing how kindness never stays confined to the moment it occurs. It multiplies, extends, crosses borders, and reaches places we could never imagine. This hidden truth reminds us that each of our actions can be the spark for a much greater transformation, and that the impact of our choices extends far beyond what we can see. Comment below, "I'm on this journey too." I want to see if you believe in this ripple effect that arises from a simple gesture and spreads, transforming not just one life, but an entire community. Deep down, we all need each other, and it's this truth that unites us. When we look at the story that began with a simple act of kindness, we realize it goes beyond the individual, beyond the lady who stopped in the rain or the man who received her help. It reminds us that at its core, life is made of invisible bonds that connect us, even when we can't see them. Each time we reach out, we not only support someone in need, but also reaffirm that we belong to something greater, a network of solidarity that silently sustains the world. It's curious how the individualistic mindset, which so often leads us to believe we need to solve everything alone, falls apart when we see examples like this. The hidden truth is that no one is truly self-sufficient. We all, at some point, need the generosity of another human being. It can be in big situations like an emergency, or in seemingly small details, like a smile that breaks the loneliness of a difficult day. And it is precisely in these details that hope is renewed, because they remind us that there is still kindness circulating, even in a world marked by injustice and inequality. The story we've followed so far is, in fact, a mirror of all our journeys. Who hasn't been at a point where everything seemed to be falling apart? Who hasn't needed unexpected support to find strength and move forward? This is the profound impact of solidarity. It restores our ability to believe, to rebuild, to transform realities that seemed definitive. Regardless of whether we're religious or not, there's something almost sacred about the experience of receiving or offering help. It's as if faith in humanity is restored with each act of compassion. And the most impressive thing is to see how this chain multiplies. When someone is helped, they often feel the desire to give back, not necessarily to the person who helped them, but to someone who crosses their path. Thus, the cycle continues, and what seemed like an isolated incident becomes part of a much larger, almost invisible, but real transformation. This shows us that acts of kindness are never limited to the moment in which they occur. They reverberate through time, span journeys, and transform into stories that inspire others. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the reflection I'm left with is powerful. Justice, faith, hope, and solidarity are not abstract concepts, but decisions we make every day. Every choice to see others, every decision to act with empathy is a building block toward a more humane world. And perhaps this is the greatest impact of all, realizing that however small they may seem, our actions carry within them the power to change destinies. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." I want to know if you also believe that true transformation happens when we understand that no one walks alone, and that it's precisely this connection that keeps us alive on our journey. Research shows that acts of kindness increase not only the happiness of those who receive them, but also of those who perform them. This isn't just a nice, inspiring phrase, it's proven science. Studies from renowned universities like Stanford and Harvard reveal that when someone performs an act of compassion, the brain releases chemicals associated with pleasure and satisfaction, such as dopamine and serotonin. In other words, doing good literally changes our biology, creating an effect similar to that of a natural reward. This hidden truth explains why many people describe kindness as addictive. The more you practice it, the more you want to repeat it, because you feel the direct impact on your own emotional journey. And this cycle isn't just internal. When a community experiences these gestures, even small ones, there's a collective transformation. A study conducted in the United Kingdom showed that neighborhoods where residents practiced more acts of solidarity had lower stress levels and even reduced rates of violence. It's as if compassion has the power to reconfigure the environment, making it safer and more human. Think about it. If a simple gesture, like offering an umbrella or a glass of water, can change one person's mood, imagine the impact of dozens or hundreds of people living with this mindset every day. Social psychology calls this the contagion effect. Kindness is contagious. When someone observes a generous act, they're more likely to be motivated to act in a similar way. This is exactly what we saw happen in that community in our story. A seemingly isolated woman's decision sparked a chain reaction, inspiring neighbors, children, and even strangers to reflect on their own choices. And this is powerful because it reveals a hidden side of life we don't always see. Our decisions resonate, even when we think no one is paying attention. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because there's a detail we often forget. Kindness doesn't just transform external results, it also shapes the mindset of those who practice it. Studies show that people who cultivate habits of generosity develop greater emotional resilience and a greater ability to make balanced decisions in crisis situations. This means that by choosing to care for others, we are also strengthening ourselves to face life's inevitable challenges. It's as if kindness were a silent investment, a resource that will sustain us when we are the ones who need support. And if we consider this globally, the numbers reinforce this idea. According to the World Health Organization, communities more engaged in volunteering have higher hope rates and even longer life expectancy. This is no coincidence. It's a practical demonstration that solidarity isn't just a nice value, but a real tool for collective transformation. Kindness, when practiced consistently, creates an invisible safety net, something no policy or law can produce alone. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. I want to know if you believe that kindness, besides helping others, is also one of the surest ways to transform our own lives from the inside out. That ordinary man, with a simple gesture, ended up becoming the silent hero of a lifetime. The most impressive thing is that he had no idea of the scope of what he had done. For him, it was simply an instinctive response, a quick decision not to turn his face away when someone was in need. But for the woman who received his help, that moment became a turning point. She would never forget the sound of his voice, the steadfastness in his gaze, the way his hands conveyed reassurance amidst the chaos. It was then that she realized that, no matter how much power or wealth he had accumulated, there was a value far greater than any material achievement: the genuine compassion of one human being for another. The most powerful outcome of this story wasn't revealed in headlines, applause, or awards. It was revealed in the quiet transformation of that woman's life, and his own as well. Because suddenly, they both understood they were facing a hidden truth that few allow themselves to see. It's not the size of the gesture that matters, but the sincerity with which it's made. That changes everything. It's the difference between a life marked only by external achievements and a life that carries, behind the scenes, a real, profound, and lasting impact. For her, the encounter was a call to rethink her own decisions, to look beyond what money could buy. For him, it was a reminder that he still carried within himself the ability to transform destinies, even though he had long believed that life had already taken that chance away from him. It was a mutual revelation. Each of them left the encounter different, carrying a new mindset, more open, more human, more connected to what truly matters. And the most moving thing is realizing how this story extends beyond the two central figures. People around who witnessed or heard about the gesture were also impacted. Some reconsidered past attitudes, others decided to act more compassionately from then on. This is how kindness works, like a ray of light that starts small but spreads until it illuminates places we never imagined it would reach. The climax lies not only in what happened in that moment, but in the ripple effect it unleashed. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic because this scene makes us think about how simple decisions can reveal the essence of who we are. We often believe that great heroes are those who appear in history books, but the truth is that true heroes are right beside us, immersed in everyday life, bearing hardships, fears, and responsibilities, yet still choosing to act with compassion. This is the most powerful impact. Discovering that anyone can, at any moment, become the silent hero in someone's life. Comment below. That makes sense to me. I want to hear if you also believe that a simple gesture can carry the power to change entire destinies. The truth is, no matter how much the world pushes us toward haste, competition, and individualism, there will always be room for those who decide to go against the current and choose kindness as a lifestyle. It's as if each generous act is a seed planted in invisible soil, ready to blossom in places we may never see. And this is the most impressive thing. We often have no idea how big an impact our actions can have on someone's life. When someone looks into another's eyes and offers genuine support, when a and reaches out to lift someone who has fallen. It's not just the immediate situation that changes, but the entire mindset of those who are about to give up. This is the kind of revelation that reveals the hidden truth behind our daily interactions. We are all connected on a silent journey where every decision can create ripples far beyond our measure. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's an essential question that few stop to reflect on. What if the world you so desire to live in depends, in large part, on the choices you make today, down to the smallest details? Think about it. It's not the grand speeches, nor the moments of glory that change history. It's the small actions, those that happen behind the scenes when no one is watching. It's there that we decide whether we will be just another in the crowd or whether we will have the courage to be the beacon of light that guides someone through the darkness. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your voice in this conversation. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." This simple phrase may seem like little, but it is a powerful symbol that you understand the power of kindness and choose to be part of a transformation that goes far beyond the individual. If you've made it this far, it's because this message somehow spoke to your heart. So leave a simple quote in the comments. "I'm with you until the end." This way, I will know that you were present in every detail of this journey. If this video brought you reflection, inspiration, or even a new perspective on the power of kindness, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. Here, each story is designed to add value to your life and remind you that behind every gesture there is a force capable of transforming destinies. And of course, leave a like. Not only does it help the video reach more people, but it also shows that this connection we've created here resonated with you. Now, if you want to continue diving into this topic, there's a video right here that complements what we talked about today. Click and join me, because the conversation continues there.